This episode is brought to you by Q Podcast. Now, if you're looking to take your brand to new heights, then Q Podcast could be just the team for the job. They're an award-winning podcast production company that specializes in giving fans a voice in the audio sphere. And with the likes of West Midland Trains, Samsung, and Vice, you know you're in good hands. Interested? Well, head over to qpodcast.com to find out more.
Hello and welcome on back to the Audio Insider podcast. It is I, diligent friend Neve, and I'm here with Rowan, as per.
Hello.
We've got a great show for you today. We really have, folks. Firstly, we're going to be having a little chat about why audio could be the best way to market a brand in 2024. And we're also going to be looking at whether people still maybe listen to music charts, the charts. Anyone listen to them? Well,
We'll see.
We'll
Maybe
see.
they do.
We shall see. Let's launch into it, shall we, Rowan?
Let's do it.
What are we looking at here? Should we?
Well,
yeah, what are we doing?
Well, I'll tell you. We're looking at. We want to first off have a look at some examples of branded podcasts, because it's all well and good as saying that, like, oh, you should use audio to market a brand, but that's rubbish unless we've got examples. And by gosh, have we got examples?
In Spain, loads.
Yes. What you said.
Yes.
So obviously we're sort of framing this as you can have a radio station to advertise a brand, and that is definitely a thing. We at Ray.co, we've recently had Next join, who are using it to sort of promote their brand in a way, and that is definitely something you can do. But today we're going to be focusing more on the podcasty side of things, as that is probably where most brands are currently going. Yeah, here's a list before we start. We've got Lip Stories by Zephora.
Rowan, but it's okay.
Sephora.
The makeup
Sephora.
girlies. The makeup girlies.
That's the
might
one.
Come for
That's the one. We love Lip Stories. We got Life After / The Message by GE.
We've got Shopify Masters by, well, yeah.
Shopify.
Deep Dive by Sale GP and Q Podcast.
Woo!
Good
Hold
friends,
on.
good friends. Good friends.
We've got 2 Minutes of Zen by Zendium. That sounds nice. We've got Why We Eat What We Eat by Blue Apron. Design Better by InVision.
Pause to Talk by Dogs for Good and Q Podcast. Yeah, thank you.
And Lorraine Kelly.
And LK,
And Lorraine.
the big LK,
Yeah.
HRH.
Go
and
Lorraine.
it's a great listen. It's very cute. Rise and Grind by Zip Recruiter. And The Pleasure Is Ours by Trojan and iHeartMedia, the massive media conglomerate, are even turning to the Humble podcast.
Wait, Neve, there's more.
Oh.
There's The Source by McDonald's.
Obsessed with
the
that.
Duolingo podcast by Duolingo, weirdly enough.
Really? Does the owl do it?
The owl
In
does
what
it.
language?
Hoot. What a hoot. And Now What by Wix, the website guys. So that's good. That's 13 there. That's just 13. And there's so many more. But as you can see, all the big players are getting involved in podcasting to advertise their brands. This is not a coincidence. If you're seeing brands make podcasts, it's not just because they feel like it. It's because they found that it's a great way to advertise.
You know, the media landscape, it does change kind of overnight. Things are very different to how they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. But one thing I've personally noticed is that podcasts, for example, have been very consistent in the kind of cultural zeitgeist for at least sort of 5 years. You know, if you're looking at the amount of listeners to podcasts, particularly in like America, the amount of listeners is mad. It's crazy. It's clocking in higher than, the average TV show, which again, about 20 years ago would be, I think it'd be a crazy concept. So it's absolutely something that, if you can, you should seize. You should seize with both hands. And, as such, businesses kind of need to adapt, I would say, to stay relevant. They need to embrace audio as like a key part of marketing strategy.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we create effective content within this? Well, we've made a few points here. The first, and probably the most important, is know your audience. If you are creating something for a shop, then you need to know who is shopping there and what kind of thing would they be listing out for. How can you further associate them with your brand? So that could be promoting stuff that's on sale or just trying to make some brand awareness. Sometimes it can be good to just have a radio station on that's playing songs. I might occasionally throw out a few like advertisement related stuff, but for the most part, it might have nothing to do with selling anything. It's just having that brand awareness, making people feel good while they're in your shop. That can go a long way. Another thing is just sort of keep it concise. and really hone in on what you're doing. So, for example, if you're doing a podcast, then make it about something. Don't just have a podcast about your brand. Say if you have like a shop that sells toys, make it about the latest toys or make it about different trends in the toy world or whatever. I don't know. Make sure you find a genre and stick to it and keep it concise within that area. Don't drift off into talking about like computer games, because while it might be similar, you're going to lose your audience.
You're supporting your brand. You're not establishing a new brand, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, you made some really interesting points, particularly earlier about kind of like having a radio station just to sort of like cheer people up in the store, whatever. Because it does help as well, I would say, having worked in retail and stuff previously, helps a little bit with staff morale as well, which in turn also helps your business. So it's all kind of like symbiotic. But anyway, sorry.
Going back to what I said earlier about Next. Next started a radio station with Radio.co, and the main reason for that is to boost the morale of their drivers and their workers, because that's what's playing in their factories, in their lorries all day long. So it's a great way of getting like bits of information out to the staff that they might want to hear, but it's also just a great way of keeping morale up and like making sure that people are enjoying their work, which is obviously one of the main things you want to happen in your business. Another thing is use strong visuals. Now, if you have like a marketing team already or a design team, then this is probably a given, but obviously you want to include your branding in some way, whether that be your logo, your overall color scheme and tone. But you want to make it clear that, you know, this is from your brand. You want people to know where this is coming from. And I guess a good example of that is one of the podcasts earlier, the sauce from McDonald's, is like the color scheme is very McDonald's, like the yellow. You can tell like the fries are in a McDonald's fries
formation,
cup formation, whatever you call that. And also, don't just do this for no reason. You want to get something back from this, ideally. So make sure to do CTAs, and if you don't know what that means, it's a call to action. So basically, you want your audience to do something with your podcast. You want them to go to your website. You want them to buy something specific. If you've got a sale on, you want them to go to the sale. Basically, just keep hinting at these things. Don't push it too much. You don't want people to get sick of it. And ideally, you want to entertain or inform first. But yeah, make sure you keep people in the loop as to what's going on and where you want them to go.
Yeah, there is a balance to be had. Earlier when we were talking about kind of like a corporate voice, it's a little bit difficult to, I would say, particularly with audio stuff, it's quite easy if you have the right presenters and the right tools to connect with listeners and potential consumers. But it's not so much if you are hammering down on the corporate tone, on the constant ads, because people switch off. They're not interested. So you just need to kind of find a way to work it through subtly, in a kind of non-patronage. It's. I would say marketing in general, obviously, it's an art. That's why people go and get degrees in it, because it's not simple.
No.
But having kind of like the tools and facilities and stuff that, hopefully we're giving to you guys with these podcasts, it goes a long way.
Okay, you've listened to that. You're thinking, yes, I want a piece of that.
Sign me up.
Yeah, give me. Well, how do you start one? How do you start a podcast? How do you start a radio station? Well, we've already gone through sort of how to do that. You want to identify your target audience.
It's like, hopefully at this stage of your business, your brand, whatever, it shouldn't be too difficult, just because obviously you would have been in talks about this before conceptualizing and creating the business. So again, it's just a case of building on the foundations of what you've already got. Just because building content that's going to resonate with your target audience is crucial for connecting with them, obviously.
And, if you are doing any marketing currently, and it's probably likely you are, then just literally copy and paste that into your podcast. So again, I'm going to the toy shop.
We're back to the toy shop.
I love this
Toys
I love the toy
us.
shop. The toy shop is obviously going to be aimed primarily at children or people up to like the age of, 15 or something like that.
Adults that like Lego, like me.
Yeah, definitely. So you're going to take that target audience and then you're going to think, well, what does this target audience want in the form of a podcast? It's really easy, really, when you think of it in that way.
Yes. And then from there, you also think, how would they like to be spoken to?
Yeah.
How would they like it to be delivered?
Yeah.
Would they like a fun tone? Would they like a serious tone? Yada, yada, yada. Really think about what their interests and needs are, you know? Sort of tailor your podcast topics around their specific concerns, interests within the brand.
Absolutely,
Don't deviate too much. You know, I know it's easy to waffle. Not that me and Roman know anything about that. No idea.
I've never eaten waffles in my life.
And then also research, you know, into similar podcasts like the list that we started off with. You know, you're kind of analysing existing podcasts out there, but also specifically within your niche, because you are going to have competitors realistically. Yeah. So you need to think about how are we going to beat them? How are we going to be people's first port of call to talk toys? Well,
Rowan's Toy Shop has already had a look, and there is plenty of toy podcasts, but I found there isn't anything about bears.
That's interesting.
And I tell you what, bears are popping off. I'm looking at my sales figures, and people want bears.
Well,
I'm thinking,
I've got an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we're sharing the same idea here.
Bearcast. It's happening. It's happening, people.
Teddy Talk.
Oh, I love it.
Do you like that?
I do like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Do you like that?
Hey, welcome to my Teddy Talk. So obviously you're going to use this knowledge you find by researching other podcasts to go, all right, well, there's plenty of podcasts in that area. That's an oversaturated market. I'll leave that alone. I'll find another niche within that sort of genre. And obviously this is the same for pretty much anything you want to make online. You don't want to just add to a pile that already exists. But yeah, this is obviously essential. If you don't do this, then you could just be wasting your time. This is incredibly important.
Yeah, it's the same as like market research that you would have done initially when you were starting the brand. It's exactly the same principle. And you have a look at what other people are doing. You acknowledge what's working for them. You acknowledge what pitfalls they have, what they're struggling with, and you learn. Some of our other tips were just, you know, kind of like, again, not only choosing a topic that you think your audience are going to be interested in hearing about, but also something that you're passionate, you know, about talking about. Or if not you, find a presenter who is interested in that specific thing. Just because authenticity is key, not only in businesses, brands, yada, 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 but in real life. You know, you really want somebody who cares and it comes across that they care. Because if you have somebody who, you know, is not interested in Teddy Time,
I want nothing to do
with it. You know, if they're in the anti-bear league, they're not going to be the best source of enthusiasm. The anti-bear league.
Yeah.
I know. But they're not going to be the best port of call, are they? You know, you're not really going to trust what they say. And I think that's another part of it as well. You want to come across as a sort of trustworthy, reliable, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, if it's a fun light or if it's like a kids podcast, whatever, it needs to be like, you know, like a serious fact-based, you know, whatever. It doesn't need to be like that. I'm just saying that, again, you want people to trust your brand and trust what you're saying, because realistically, they're not going to come to you for your services if they don't trust you. Don't trust what you're all about. You know what I mean? And as well, just making sure you're finding a topic that aligns with your brand's values. You know, don't go too crazy. Make sure it's sort of cohesive. Just again, in terms of what your brand stands for. You know, again, don't invite somebody on from the anti-bear league to Teddy Time.
That would be a disaster.
It's gonna annoy people. It's gonna perturb people. You know, some other quick ones. Just sort of determining your podcast format. You know, considering the type of content that you want to deliver. Will it be interviews? You know, will it be a solo monologue, combination, bit of music, whatever the vibe? And also think about the structure and the flow of your episodes.
Yeah.
You know, a well organized format should hopefully keep listeners engaged.
Absolutely.
You would hope.
Absolutely.
And also deciding on this is a big one. This one we had to, you know, think about. Deciding on whether you want to do audio only content or video or a little bit of both, you know, kind of think about the benefits of each format because audio only podcasts, they are more accessible, definitely. But video can add a visual element that, to some people makes the information a little bit easier to digest, I would say. And it's also good to repurpose the content. So there's benefits across both, and there's ways you can streamline making both at the at the same time.
Well, if you're thinking of posting stuff on social media, then having a video element is always helpful.
100%, yeah.
You can post just audio clips on the likes of like TikTok, but it's not going to be as
you need some sort of visual, some kind of animation, and then that might be more effort than it would be worth. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You might also want to think about a release schedule. Will it be something you have the time to do every week, or is it maybe something you'll want to do like every month or something, or every quarter of a month? Really every quarter of a month, every quarter of a year.
Yes.
Every financial quarter. Maybe you want
of Teddy time.
Absolutely.
Yes, on
why
Teddy
not?
time.
But consistency is the main thing here. It doesn't matter how often you post, as long as people know when you're going to post and you keep to that schedule. You need to sort of be realistic about this as well, because if you don't have the time to do it every week, then don't promise that, because that just looks unprofessional, and it'll turn off your audience before you even get started, really. And then lastly, promotion. How to promote your podcast. Well, we've already mentioned social media and posting video clips, and obviously that is a pretty simple way of like showing your podcast to people that might not necessarily know it exists. But then you've also got the likes of like email marketing. If you've already got a newsletter for your business, then chuck it in there. Why not?
Might as well. Don't cost a penny, does it? Just to whack in a little link.
And they might already be interested. If they've already signed up to your newsletter, the likelihood is they want to know more about your business. And then, just collaborate with others as well. There's no harm in, say, Neve's Battleship podcast, where she talks about exclusively the game Battleship. Maybe she wants to come on the podcast and chat TEDs with me.
Battleship, really?
Yeah.
No, I've got a Panda podcast.
Oh, you got Panda Pod?
I'm on Panda Pod.
No
I'm
way.
on Pan Pod, and I want to collab on your bear situation.
On my TED Talk.
Who knows? On your Teddy Bear Talk, and who knows? Maybe we could collab, and you could start making panda bears.
I'm starting to think this is a good idea. Maybe we should do it. Brilliant. But that's cross promotion. You're basically, we've talked about this before, but you're just intertwining your audiences. You're bringing over an audience and giving them an audience. It's a great way of working together to market your podcast.
You just need to cleverly choose who you're collabing with. Again, it's a thing about values aligning.
Who would your audience want to listen to?
And I guess like one tiny final tip I might offer is just that, if you are putting the resources and the time and sometimes money and the effort into creating this kind of content, just make sure that people know about it. And I'm not saying really expensive advertising campaigns. I'm just saying, for example, if you've got a store, if you've got a shop for your brand, whatever the case may be, put something in the shop just to say, have you heard this? Here's a little, or have something playing over there, or, you just anything, or even on the end of receipts. I noticed that this is something that some brands do where they put it at the bottom of the receipt. Oh, listen to,
I saw an advert on a
like
bus the other day for a branded podcast. I don't remember what it was now, but I thought that's pretty extreme.
Can't have had that big of
an no, I suppose it didn't, but I know it happened.
But it is so important if you are within a audio sphere, I think, to consider marketing. That's why we bang on about it all the time. Just because, we're trying to help you. We're trying to help you guys out there. And even if you really don't want to be bothered with the marketing aspect, it's not for me, whatever, it's still something you really, really need to bear in mind.
And I think as well, this is...
mind.
Oh, I love it.
Bear.
I love it. So, hold on. I think as well, like, this is a really fun way of marketing a brand. Like, I think some people have a very down view of marketing, that it's boring, or it always has to just be very corporate. And a lot of it can be, but this is a fun way. You can have a bit of fun with it.
Exactly. I think traditionally in the past it was a little bit more dry. The nature of marketing itself has completely changed.
Absolutely.
Along with the audio sphere, marketing itself has changed.
Yeah.
And you need to move with the times always.
Yeah.
If you wanna stay afloat, you gotta
do that TikTok dance.
Do that TikTok dance.
Yeah.
Do it, I say, with tears in your eyes.
Yeah. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Matchmaker FM. If you're a podcaster, it can sometimes be a bit difficult to find guests. Equally, if you're a guest looking for podcasts to appear on, it's not always easy to find them. Thankfully, our sister company, Matchmaker.fm, has an app to do just that. With over 70,000 users, Matchmaker FM is the best place to find, contact, and collaborate with like-minded creatives. Cut out all the time wasters and build a community of world-class content creators. And the best part, you can sign up today for free. So head over to Matchmaker.fm to get started.
Let's talk charts.
Let's do it.
What's happened? Where are they? What's happened? Tell me.
I don't know. Stop shouting at me.
Why don't music marketers need them anymore?
Or do they?
I don't know. So will you tell me?
What are we talking about here? It's a good question. It's a very good question. Basically, we noticed recently that the official charts, so obviously in the UK, we've got the top 40. In America, they've got the Billboard Hot 100. And they seem to be doing okay, but no one really talks about them anymore. No one really needs them to promote music anymore.
It's not really that much of I would say, a cultural achievement to reach the top of the charts as it used to be. I think, in the 2000s and way before that with, Top of the Pops and stuff like that, it was basically your main goal, as a pop artist to get in there and get in there high and stay in there. Infamous chart battles over the years, yada, yada. And I just don't feel that it's the same anymore.
No.
Perhaps at Christmas, but that's quite literally 1 month of the year. So,
like a bit of history on this. So the charts launched in the UK back in 1952 by Percy Dickens. And it worked very differently back then. It wasn't very scientific. Percy would contact 20 music stores in his area and ask for the most popular songs that week. So basically the best selling songs that week. He'd then compile this together and I guess create like a medium or something and go, all right, well, this is the top song this week. Obviously, over the years, things changed. It got a bit more scientific in terms of sales and stuff. Slightly more accurate, yeah. But so that's how it started in the UK, and in the US, it was a kind of similar thing. The Billboard Hot 100 began in 1958, so only 6 years after, and it charted A and B sides of records separately, interestingly, and obviously that later changed to include both sides in the charts. But yeah, so this idea of the charts has been around a long time now. Like you said, it became a big thing, especially in like the 90s with the chart battles with the likes of like Oasis and Blur and stuff like that. And then the Top of the Pops came along on the BBC in the UK as well, and it just went to crazy heights at one point. Like it was a cultural event to know
it was still
what
a
was
thing,
number
like,
one.
even when we were, I would say when we were like, I don't know, like when was the Rage Against the Machine and the X Factor one? I feel like that wasn't even that long ago.
No. But X Factor, gave it a sort of resurgence, didn't it? Because they wanted to know, was the X Factor winner going to be number one? And especially around Christmas time as well, it was like, who's going to be Christmas number one? And I feel like in the 2010s, it was still a fairly big deal.
If a big celebrity died or something like that. Like I remember when Michael Jackson died, the charts were absolutely full. When George Michael died, not even that long ago, really, although actually thinking about it.
When was that? 2016? 2015? But so now it's kind of more in the background. And I guess the last big event that happened on the charts was the introduction of streaming back in 2007 was the last time it properly changed to include streaming. And then back in 2017 as well, there was a whole thing with Ed Sheeran in that he released his Divide album and all 13 songs somehow managed to make it into the charts. And then it got changed slightly, so now only 3 songs per album can be in the charts at once. Thank God, because I don't remember that time, but I imagine it was quite... Yeah, anyway, I'll leave out my thought on it.
But physically, I can't work out how that...
How did that happen?
Like, a
lot of mums love Ed Sheeran.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, an artist can do... It's a real achievement.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be... And also, you'd like Ed Sheeran's Instagram name. It's Teddy's photo.
It is.
Teddy's.
Good times. Good times.
Teddy's.
But also, like, some other things that have happened with the charts that have drawn criticism over the years is that now with the introduction of streaming and people can just listen to any album from any generation any time, The albums charts has become a bit murky, and that occasionally you just get an album that came out about 30 years ago appearing back in the charts.
Yeah.
So it's not really this hub for new music that it used to be.
And I do wonder in terms of, I mean, I don't know that much about like compensation for, being in the chart. I don't fully know stuff like that, royalties, what have you. But it does intrigue me with artists that have like passed on and stuff like that. Like, how does that work?
Exactly.
It brings up some questions, I will say.
So I guess after all of this, after putting all this together, why is the charts not failing, but why is it not this key thing that artists push like they used to? And who's to blame for this? Well, we've made a bit of a list because we like a list.
Yeah.
And the first one is one that we're going to immediately scratch out, and that is radio just isn't as big as it used to be. The death of radio, if you will, because radio is doing well. We say this on pretty much every episode in some shape or form, but radio is going from new heights,
strength to strength. I just think you guys haven't got over the video killed the radio star song.
It's fake news.
It's been years. Move on.
Radio in the UK recorded that a record high of listeners are tuning into radio, with 50.8 million people listening in Q2 of 2024. So that's this year. And commercial radio has also seen a record-breaking audience reach of 39.7 million, with a share of 54.2% listening. So, I mean, that's all you need to know. Radio is thriving.
It couldn't be. I think radio is just so accessible nowadays.
Yeah.
Particularly with internet radio, that it would be it's just a physical impossibility.
Yeah.
However,
people are getting their music tastes from different avenues now. And one of these, and probably the most recent, is TikTok, or social media in general, but we'll focus on TikTok for the sake of argument. So TikTok's rise in popularity during the pandemic helped make a lot of artists household names, and it still is doing so. So to name a few, Lil Nas X, Doja Cat, Jack Harlow, Olivia Rodrigo, whose song Driver's License was one of the best-selling songs of 2021.
And Sour, one of the most successful debut albums of all time.
There you go. Dixie D'Amelio.
Rowan's down with the kids.
I love Dixie, Lizzo, Sabrina Carpenter, Maneskin, Megan Thee Stallion. And you could say that all of these artists also had like introductions in other ways, not just TikTok, but TikTok was really where people learnt about them. Yeah,
exactly. And there's people like Pink Pantheress, for example. Like I remember when she was like just like a SoundCloud artist, so not even on like wider streaming. But thanks to uploading a track on TikTok, she actually ended up being like, I think they did like a poll a couple of years ago where she was technically the most successful TikTok artist of that time, because obviously, she had no sales because she hadn't actually professionally recorded anything, but her production skills were just that good. She's wonderful.
Wow.
TikTok,
it's this big deal, and it's also not only created new stars, but it's also given a resurgence to some that people may have forgot about, or younger audiences weren't necessarily aware of.
Yes.
The biggest example is obviously Kate Bush, who had a resurgence in 2022, thanks in part to the Stranger Things episode with her song Running Up That Hill.
Yes. Deal with God. Yes.
That's the one.
Sophie Ellis-Bextor.
Yes, with Murder on the Dance Floor
but
last
again,
year.
Saltburn. And Natasha Bedingfield, but again, the Anyone But You film. And at the moment, the current song is MacArthur Park by Richard Harris. The first guy to play Dumbledore. Don't know if you remember from the first two films.
But you could say
because of the movie that's out at the moment.
But all of these are from other forms of media. They don't originate on TikTok, but it's TikTok that really makes them skyrocket. And ultimately, they then appear in the charts. That's the amazing thing. These old songs are now coming back into the public eye and appearing back in the charts, thanks to, in part, to TikTok. How does this affect the charts? Well, I mean, in one way, the chart companies, such as the one in the UK, are having to lean towards creating TikTok-style content to get these new generations in. The OCC in the UK is producing 60-second charts on TikTok. So basically, people don't want to tune into a 2-hour radio show anymore. So instead, they're seeing what is number one through a 60-second clip. And Yeah, so this is clear. It's clear in every single way that the charts can't ignore something like TikTok anymore. They realize the power that this platform has on the overall charts.
Absolutely.
And they realize that's where they need to be if they want the charts to become want to continue in a way, really.
It's something that, you know, artists as well will have to accept. Some artists have embraced it. I've noticed sort of like a general trend of a lot of the songs that charting being shorter in general, which is quite different to, you know, if you look at some of like some records from the 70s, you'd have songs charting that'd be about 10 minutes long, you know, and that's not really, it's not typically the case nowadays. It tends to be below 3-minute track that does really, really well. And again, it is just something that people are going to have to accept. It's moving with the times.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are absolutely right. It has had a massive impact on the charts, and so has streaming just in general.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess the next big thing that could have damaged the chart, shall we say, is streaming. In 2007, like I said, the charts were updated to account for streaming, meaning that any song from any decade, as long as it's been streamed that week, could theoretically appear in the charts. And that's obviously what we've been seeing with the likes of like Sophie Ellis-Bextor and stuff. However, something that may have confused things, and something that may show that it isn't actually streaming that's caused the damage to the charts, but actually the way the charts have reacted to streaming. And yeah, I found this from The Guardian, and I had no idea this is how it worked. But yeah, from The Guardian, for albums especially where one download or physical sale is currently equivalent to 1,000 streams, it's still possible to game the charts using complex and cunning strategies. So essentially what that means is 1,000 streams is equivalent to one person buying an album, which I don't know, that seems awfully high.
Yes.
The UK label trade body, the British phonographic industry, reported that around 86% of albums, go straight to number one in 2023, and they saw over half of their sales come from physical formats. Acts will pull out multiple vinyl editions and do in-store tours of record shops, where fans will often get the chance to get in for the price of a CD or LP purchase. And this can add thousands of sales to their week one tally. So basically what this means is artists have realized the power that album sales are having and like LP sales are having. So they're just basically releasing loads of different versions of an LP and special editions and stuff like that. So more and more people feel the need to buy them. And also doing sales and making them cheaper and stuff like that, because basically they've realized that if one album sale is the equivalent of 1,000 streams, then obviously it's very worthwhile to focus on that if you want to get in the charts that
Yes. Week. Yeah, and drive home that. Yeah, isn't it interesting though that physical media is the kind of the temptation here? You know? I think it's
well, I guess
intriguing.
That's nothing new. That's obviously how it used to be, because there was no alternative. That was how it was. But now there is even more of an incentive there, because of how the charts has adapted to streaming, which I thought was interesting, because it's not necessarily streaming's fault. In this instance, it's kind of, I don't know who you'd blame for this. It just feels like a bit out of sync, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Maybe at one point when it kind of looked like that physical media was going completely, this makes sense. But now with streaming and physical stuff living side by side, and physical stuff even getting more and more popular, this might need they might need to take another look at this.
Adjustment.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, there's issues that come with streaming, like the Ed Sheeran incident.
The Ed Sheeran incident. That's a good band name, actually.
Ed Sheeran Gate.
The Ed Sheeran incident.
But yeah, all of his songs appeared in the charts that week after his album dropped. Yeah, which is insane. But that is basically just because it's so easy to stream an album now.
And I see that it's not very fair to, other artists, particularly, in the 2000s, I think there was much more room for what you would call one-hit wonders, to just put out one tune that really, really hits, then you'd have like artists who didn't have to do anything else the rest of the career, because that one song was so
it's a lot harder to do that now.
Impactful. I mean, I don't know, having this conversation, I'm seeing so many negatives and positives about the current state of the charts. I don't know how you feel about it. There's an element of me that does feel a bit sad because the charts used to be such an interactive thing. I used to watch the countdown on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
Like, oh, who's going to get to the top? Is it going to be... back then I was like, oh, I want it to be Busted instead of, whatever the case may be. It used to be quite a fun communal thing, and it's
lost
not
its
so
edge
more.
a little bit.
It's not. And actually, I would say there's a lot of artists that have done really, really well culturally speaking. We're talking about Charlie XCX a couple of weeks ago. Chart wise. She's done well, but
she's
not as you would expect.
No, you wouldn't know from the charts that she's been the icon of the summer. Really,
and yet, this is what I mean. You have an artist here who's like so beloved, But then this thing does also go back to like the 80s, whatever. There's artists like the Smiths, The Cure, whatever, so universally loved, particularly now. But like chart wise, not actually that successful, really.
Well, I think that's interesting because that's probably my main thing with it, and the main reason I probably assume it's not the big deal it used to be. And that's with the likes of streaming and say Spotify, for instance. You can go on Spotify and take a look at the top 40 and that's updated, I don't know, probably every hour, every day or something like that. So you can pretty much see what the most popular song is at any given time. You don't need to wait for the chart share on a Friday or something. You can literally just look at that information whenever you want. So there isn't that sort of sense of surprise anymore.
No.
Like you're not at number 2 in the chart on the radio and thinking, oh God, who's number 1 going to be? Because you can just go on Spotify and find out if you're that interested.
Exactly. And you see clips of artists from back in the day like reacting to them being number 1, and you don't get that anymore.
No.
But then again, are we just not moving with the times, Rowan? Are we being
maybe
nostalgic? I do see a lot of good to the rise of TikTok, even though I do criticize a lot of it. One thing I do think, artists like Pink Pantheress, who knows, maybe she wouldn't have been as popular or as big were it not for the accessibility of just being able to whack something up on TikTok. There's a DJ a couple of years ago, I think he's called Vano 3000, I'm not 100% sure, but he had a record called Running Away. People used it for a Adult Swim trend. I don't know if you recall that. It was like you would do some like wacky thing and then you'd put anyway.
Right.
Point being, an artist like that genuinely like wasn't even on Spotify, just on SoundCloud, would have never broken through. But thanks to TikTok having an impact on the charts, now has like a flourishing career from it. So accessible, but also kind of a bit sad for what we traditionally know as like charts,
I guess
making music.
The flip side of that is if you take a look at the charts in the UK and I think in the US as well for the whole of summer basically, you'll see that it hasn't changed a lot. The top 3 has essentially been Sabrina Carpenter, and she now has 3 songs in the charts, the maximum you can have from one album. So I believe the top 3 is currently just those 3 songs.
As it should be.
Well, you might think that's a great thing, you might not. I'm sort of indifferent to it, but I think the thing with that is it kind of goes back to the Ed Sheeran, what do we call it? The Ed Sheeran incident
phenomenon.
In that it's also just not that exciting. If you're just going to have the same person dominating week after week, you kind of lose the edge of it.
Yes, I do know what you mean, but then there is also conversely the fact that you have different charts for different, different genres. In America, I know you have like a specific country one, yada yada. There's different genres.
Yeah, there is.
I will say I always think the alternative charts, that's too broad a word, because alternative also covers indie, rock, that is far too broad. But no, I definitely know what you mean there. And it also, just thinking about that, kind of blocks a little bit like legacy artists as well, like artists that would have done really well in the charts, say 20 years ago, whatever. They just
don't have that cut through with like the Gen Z audience.
Exactly. They'll release a new album and yes, they will have the love and support of their like prior fans, but it's quite hard to connect, I would say, with a new fan base charts wise when you have
definitely
artists dominating the charts. Yeah.
So wrap this up and go back to our original question, which was why are marketers not using this anymore? Why does music marketing not seem to rely on the charts as much as they used to? I guess probably the biggest reason then is that there's just other avenues now. There isn't a need to focus on the charts. And I found this statistic, which was quite interesting, actually, from the OCC again, which says 69% of the official chart followers say the chart is their primary way of discovering new music. More than streaming platforms, radio, YouTube, TikTok, and even their friends. So there is still a place for the charts. It's just not the place anymore. It's like it's just one avenue to find new music.
But it's still a good one, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you flip on the radio and you think, oh, not heard this before.
Yeah,
What's this? I like
definitely.
this. You know,
But
Shazam it. Yeah.
Back in the day, marketing relied on it because it was the place to find new music. Whereas
Yes.
now, you go on TikTok, you go on YouTube,
And
wherever.
way back in the day, I remember typing in the lyrics and always getting the lyrics wrong and not being able to find the song that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
imagine what it was like before that as well. That must
Yeah.
have been like really difficult.
Definitely. So do we still need them? Would you be sad if the charts
I
went?
personally would be sad, but again, is that just the nostalgic element in me? I always think there is a place for the charts because again, you are blocking out some artists there, and again, it's just it's an institution. The charts, you know, I would be very sad if it just reverted to, you know. But that being said, I don't think we're in any danger of charts going anywhere.
No.
You know, iTunes charts. I know a lot of people refer to those. And it is quite a good indicator if, for example, you don't know what to listen to whatsoever and you're just like, oh, I kind of just want something, you know. What are the kids listening to these days?
Yeah, exactly.
You can see what the kids are listening to
Absolutely.
these days.
Yeah. And I think they've done a pretty good job, like you say, of adapting over time. You don't have the likes of like Top of the Pops anymore, but the radio show still exists and they're updating it. They changed the day recently from Sunday to Friday. They get new hosts in quite regularly. So they try their best with it. And then I know that Capital have their own chart now called like Big Top 40 or something like that.
Yeah, and sometimes they get the artists to come and perform the track on them.
Something I have noticed though that now is, like you say, back in the day, the number one slot would always get the artist on to talk about it and be excited.
Or on Top of the Pops, they would always perform it.
You don't get that anymore. Not so much anyway. Not for the last few times I've listened to it anyway. It's more now like they usually get someone on, maybe from like the top three, but especially like, for example, Sabrina Carpenter, they're not going to get her on every week for the past 14 weeks.
I think we're just going to
wrap it up.
We
will wrap it up and we'll move on to the fact of the day /future/past.
Woo!
OMC Fact of the Day /future/past.
Neve, it's a good one this week.
I'm ready.
It's a good one.
I'm ready.
Did you know, Neve, that British naval officers play Britney Spears songs to scare away Somali pirates off the coast of Africa?
No, I didn't know that.
Would you like to know more?
Well, I want to know what song. She's got tunes. Why would that scare them off?
Well,
That'd invite me in. I'd think, bring me to the club.
Well, the
club
belief
in the
behind
sea.
this tactic, Neve, is unlike you, Somali pirates really hate Western culture and music.
Oh, that's true.
Whereas you love it. There's not a day that goes by when Neve doesn't say, I love Western culture.
Yeah, I am mad for it.
She really loves it.
I'm mad for it.
Yeah. And yeah, clearly at some point, someone had a Britney Spears CD lying around. They were maybe they were already playing it when the Somali pirates were about to board. And then all of a sudden they noticed that they were...
Bored. Boarding passes.
Yeah, they got they got close to the boat. They put the plank across. They were about to board.
The lady checked the passports.
And they suddenly heard, "Hit me, baby, one more time." And suddenly they were running back across the board and they were sailing away because they hated it.
No
they
taste.
hate Britney Spears.
Do we not know any specific songs?
According to this source, "Oops, I Did It Again" and "Baby One More Time" are the songs
You
which
think
are
it'd
used.
be "You Drive Me Crazy"? I just can't see because
Well, yeah,
then
'cause
they'd be
it
drove
does
crazy.
drive them crazy.
Yeah.
I will make clear that this is all based on rumour and reports, so I can't confirm
So it's not
this.
fact.
It is a fact. According to this website, it's a fact. It might be a myth, but I doubt it.
It's because
It's
you want
probably
it
true.
to be a fact.
Yeah.
Because it's amusing.
But yeah, if you're in the East African area and you happen to be boarded by pirates, just shout, it's Britney, bitch, and they'll run away.
I think that's a sentence that nobody's ever said in the history of sentences. And with that nugget
I think that's a
of
good place to
wisdom,
leave it.
let's wrap up for
Absolutely.
good. Well, thank you so much for checking out Audio Insider. If you enjoyed today's podcast, as per, please make sure to, hit subscribe on whatever medium you may be listening or, watching us on, whatever the vibe may be. Smash the subscribe button.
Smash it.
Just so you can get updated and, never miss a wonderful slice of podcasty gold with the Audio Insider team. We'd also really appreciate a review if you could be so kind. That would be wonderful. And, if you've got a hilarious quip or just a good comment, who knows? Maybe we'll read it out in next week's episode.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? But yeah, as per, I've been Neve. It's been Rowan, and this has been Teddy Talk.
Teddy's Talk and Panda Pod coming soon.
Ta-ta!
Bye-bye.